Let us not forget everything that happens. It's by the will of Allah. Holy will. It's time to unite and stand, and we will be the best amongst men. It's not time to be extreme or duty unthinkable, but to stand together as one. Tune into Sunnah followers, stream it every day, various platforms. Trust me, you'll find a way. Sunnah followers.
Not much is mentioned about her other than the fact that she participated in 2 pledges. But the reality is that she is a great example of what true motherhood is, because her offspring has made history even today. Join Ustada Lailanasheeba as she details what true motherhood brings forth with the story of Manee radiyallahu anha. Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our Heroines of Islam series. And this has become one of our more popular series because, number one, you're learning about the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And number two, you're also learning the history of Islam. You know, a lot of people ask, Sister Layla, how do I learn the history of Islam? There's no book that you can buy that's going to go over the history of Islam. The best way to learn the history of Islam is by learning about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and learning about his companions, because by learning about him and learning about his companions, that's the way you learn how this beautiful, wonderful way of life spread it across the ocean, but mountains and desert. You know, how it spread from that place to the other places of the world where it's now the second largest religion on earth. And when Jesus alayhi salam comes or returns, it'll then be the only religion on earth. And we were talking about that right before class. A lot of people ask, out of all the nations that existed back then, you had the Romans, who were known for their culture, their intelligence. The Romans were the superpowers of the earth. And then you had the Persians. The Persians were very cultured, extremely intelligent and gifted, you know. And then you had the Europeans who were making their progress too. And then you had the Asians. The Chinese people were always more advanced than others. The Chinese and Asian cultures were very, very advanced. You know, why the Arabs? Why that part of the world, the most desolate part of earth? Nobody wanted to conquer Arabia, and nobody did. The Romans, Alexander the Great, the Greeks, they all conquered the world, but they never went to that part. There was no interest in that part of the earth because it was barren land, desolate. Nothing grew there. Very depressing. The mountains were not green and lush. The mountains of Arabia are dark, black, ugly, scary. So why that part of the world? Why not Europe? Why not Asia? Why not the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire? Why not even the Vikings? Because Allah has hikmah that none of us could ever have. Allah tells us that Islam or submission to him appeals to those of us who are more downtrodden, who are weak. Because again, the fitra that is in our heart, it recognizes the truth. The Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, even the Vikings back then, Karen, even the Vikings back then, they were the earth. They were succumbing to the earth, the wealth of the earth. This dunya appealed to them, the conquering, the money, the wealth, the riches. They would not have been as receptive to the idea of worshiping one creator like the Arabs were. The simple fact that Arabia was so desolate, so lonely, so depressing, that there was no wealth there that was obvious at that time. Little did they know all that oil would be there, be found there centuries later. Okay. But, Allah knew that his message would appeal to the Arabs more so than any other culture at that time because of their lifestyle being so barbaric. The Arabs were a tribal people. Everything was conquered. They were raiding and fighting each other and stealing and taking from each other and killing and maiming each other. It would appeal more to a barbaric race of people like them than it would to a cultured, so-called civilized race of people. So that's why Allah chose that part of the world. The men were aggressive. The men were barbaric. But not just the men, the women too. The women were not soft. The women were not cultured like that. The women were just as aggressive as the men. They had to be, okay, because of the environment, because of their environment and stuff. So it was that type of culture and that type of people that would be more receptive to the call of Allah. And that's why Allah chose that part of the world. Okay? Subhanallah. Well, tonight I'm going to give you the story of another woman. Her name was Manee, not Manee, Manee. And she was the mother of one of the most eminent companions. She was the mother of one of the companions who became the first ambassador of Islam. He was one of the first messengers appointed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to go out and convey the message of the truth. She was the mother of one of the first da'iyah of Islam, and that was Muadh Ibn Jabal. She was his mother, Muadh. And her story is a story of what true motherhood entails. And her story is not spoken about much, okay? We don't even know when she died. Her personal story is not spoken of much, but her contribution still carries on today because you want to know what a mother is supposed to do. How the mother is the one that teaches the child, and how even after the death of the parent, whatever good deeds that child does, the parents will be raised up as a result. She is the epitome of that. And her name again is Manee. So let me put the PowerPoint up and begin this story of this wonderful female companion who is not mentioned that much. I like to choose people that are not mentioned much. I like to choose companions that you don't hear about every day. Because, we all know about Aisha, radiallahu anha, and all of them. But how many of you have heard of Manee? You've heard of her son, because I speak about her son a lot. But so I chose her tonight. Let me put the PowerPoint up. Trying to make it. Okay, big screen. All right, let me. You would think by now I'd be able to flip flop around better than this, but I can't. Still can't. Okay, let me share my screen now with the people on YouTube and all the other places. And don't forget to take screenshots. Yeah, somebody sent me an email asking me that. Yeah, of course you can screenshot everything here. This is a professional educational environment. Yes, everything that all PowerPoints that we use, you can screenshot. And in fact, we highly recommend that you screenshot them. Okay, so here we go. Let's start off with the first slide here. So tonight I'm going to be doing the story of Manee. Her real name was Asma bint Amir. Asma, the daughter of Amir. Okay, and again, her story is one that all women can learn from who have children. So let's start it off. Manee. First of all, I did mention her before. She was the second woman amongst the Ansar delegates who came from Medina to Mecca to pledge allegiance to the Prophet Muhammad. You guys knew about Nusayba. I did her story. Well, Manee, she suffered with hardships of the journey. She came with those delegates from Medina. And she suffered the hardships of the journey. And we talked about how by camel, it took at least the minimum of 2 weeks. A lot of people ask, how long did it take to travel by camel from Mecca to Medina or Medina to Mecca? It took the minimum amount of time on a camel would be 2 weeks, 14 days. And that was a hard journey through the desert, okay? The hot sun, the heat, sandstorms, and all of that. So she suffered the hardship of the journey, and she took it with patience. Why? Because she was driven by her love for Allah and his prophet. She loved Allah. She loved the Prophet Muhammad, and she wanted to meet him. She had to meet him in real life. She'd heard about him. And so she wanted to see this man. And she had converted to Islam before she left Medina. And again, she was one of the people that converted due to the dawah of Muadh Ibn Jabal. Remember, Muadh, the prophet had sent him from Mecca to Medina to go back with the people that came to make Hajj from Medina. He sent Muadh Ibn Jabal to go back and teach the people of Medina Islam, because they had agreed, the Ansar had agreed to accept him as their leader and their prophet and allow him to live and practice his religion there. So she listened to Muadh Ibn Jabal and she converted as a result. And when she converted, she was eager. When the call came for people to go, for a group to go to Mecca to give their allegiance to him, she volunteered herself. She joined the ranks. She said, I have to see him. I have to meet him. I have to meet this man who changed my life through his words. So she traveled from Medina to Mecca with the 1st Battalion of Muslims. And listen to what Ibn Hajar said. He said, Manee, she was the mother of Shubath. Some say that her real name was Asma bint Amir. Ibn Sa'd tells us that reaching Amara, remember the other woman that traveled to Medina was Amara. That was Nusayba's kunya, Nusayba. So she and Nusayba were the two women that went. And when her and Nusayba arrived in Mecca and they were presented to the prophet, the men said, we have 2 women with us. And they want to also give their pledge of allegiance and support to you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, well, I want them to know that I accept their pledge, but I do not shake hands with women. So it was her and Nusayba's nickname was Manee. So her and Nusayba were the two women that gave their a pledge of allegiance to the Prophet in Mecca when as and under their protection. Not only did she witness the first pledge of allegiance, but she was also, just like Manee, they were best friends, by the way. Just like Manee, whose real name was Nusayba, she also was one of the 70 people who gave her pledge of allegiance at Aqaba too. So she, like Manee or Nusayba, she witnessed both pledges of allegiance. So she witnessed the pledge of Aqaba, and when she went and gave her pledge of allegiance to the Prophet Aqaba, that's when she took with her her young son, whose name was Muadh Ibn Jabal. So that's how everyone knows her. She is the mother of Muadh Ibn Jabal. Okay. Not only did she participate in both pledges of allegiance, but just like most of the Arabic women, she witnessed the battles that the Muslims fought too. Like all the Arabic women would do back in those days, all the Arabic women would go out on the battlefield with the men. Many of them would treat the wound. Their real goal was to take care of the wounded men and to give water to the thirsty and all of that. But all Arabic women, as I emphasized to you, were trained in warfare. All Arabic women were warriors because this was a barbaric race of people. They lived in barbaric times. The women that were kept alive were taught the skill of fighting. In fact, Ibn Hajar mentions of her participation in the Battle of Khaybar. And also remember, it was the Battle of Khaybar that the Prophet Muhammad gave women war booty. Remember Nusayba? It was two women that participated in the Battle of Khaybar and was given part of the shares of the war. Those two women was Nusayba and Manee. So she was another one of the women that the Prophet of Allah gave a share of the war booty to. So that proves that she didn't just take care of the sick on the battlefield, but like most Arab women of her time, they would participate in the fighting too if they had to. If the men would run away or if they saw the men getting outnumbered, the Arabic women would put down their bottles of water and get their swords and go out and fight too. Manee was one of those women. She never shirked her responsibilities. None of the Arabic women did. It wasn't their culture because, again, the women that were kept alive, they had to be trained to fight because back in those days, a weak woman wouldn't survive. She'd become a slave, a prostitute, or she was not beautiful enough to be prostituted, they'd kill her. So these women were trained to defend themselves because they'd rather die than become a concubine of someone. Okay? So Manee, she also participated on the battlefield. But the main thing that she's known for is her son, Muadh Ibn Jabal. And like I tell you guys, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in an authentic hadith, you can tell how good a man is by looking at his wives. If the man's wives are content, then that's the sign that he's a good man. And you can tell how the greatness of a woman by looking at the children. Honorable. If the children are polite, then that's a sign that she's a good woman. Well, she is the epitome of that, because one of the most outstanding companions ever was Muadh Ibn Jabal. He was not only good in manners and extremely handsome, but he was good in other ways too. And all because his mother, when she converted to Islam, so did her son. And she raised him upon Sirat al-Mustaqim. Listen to what Ibn Hajar says about Muadh. He said Muadh was a leader, and he was also an authority in the lawful and unlawful. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, guys, he taught the Muslims the religion. He taught them what it means to believe in Allah. And then he started going over the other things, how to pray, the lawful and the unlawful, and all of that. Muadh was very smart. He caught on to it faster than most people. Listen to what Abu Idris al-Kalani says. He says Muadh was very fair-skinned. He was light in color. He wasn't dark in color. He was light complexion and extremely handsome. He had shiny white teeth, and he had big dark eyes. Typical Arab, probably looked like this. This is an AI generated picture I did based on the descriptions of him. He probably looked like this. Ka'b ibn Malik said he was an extremely young, handsome man. He was the best of his tribe. Al-Waqidi said he was one of the most handsome men you'd ever see. He witnessed all the battles, and he narrated many of the hadiths from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And some of the people who narrated hadiths from him are the famous Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas narrated a lot of hadiths from him. Also Ibn Adi. Also Ibn Abi Auta al-Ashari. Also Abdul Rahman ibn Samurra and Jabir ibn Anas. He was one of the best of the Muslims because he too participated in the Battle of Badr. And you guys know the Prophet Muhammad said the best of the Muslims were all the Muslims who participated in Badr and the Battle of Uhud. And by the way, to show how young he was, when he was 21 years old when he participated in the Battle of Badr. And that's how he probably looked like this, because when I generated this picture, I put in the age of 21. So he probably looks similar to these pictures that you'll be seeing that I have here. Here's another picture I generated. Well, he was the one that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam appointed to be governor or ambassador to Yemen. And we have that authentic hadith from Bukhari, where Ibn Abbas tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Muadh, he said, "O Muadh, I am sending you to Yemen, and I realize the affliction that you have suffered because of this religion, and I realize the depths that you have incurred. So when you go to Yemen, remember it's lawful for you to accept gifts. If you are presented with a gift, you can accept it. And by the way, Yemen was a Christian country. And this is the dalil that you can accept gifts from Christians. Yes, you can accept gifts on their holidays too. You got these rigid Muslims that tell you that you can't accept gifts from them on their holidays. That's not true. The Prophet accepted gifts. And even when he sent Muadh, he said, you're going to a Christian country. You can accept gifts from them because they're going to give you gifts. Okay, that's what they do. The Christians always were celebrating silly days and giving gifts. Okay. And when Muadh came back from Yemen, he had 30 heads of animals that were given to him as gifts. And he brought them back from Yemen with him to Medina. But I want you guys to understand something very important that I talked about before. Muadh, when he was sent to be the governor of Yemen, that was the last time he saw the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the Prophet Muhammad, he stayed in Yemen teaching Islam to the people. And he didn't come back until after the Prophet had died. And that's when the Prophet told him, you're going to a Christian country. He said, teach the people what it means to worship Allah alone first. And after they learn that, then teach them the prayer. Then after they learn that, teach them the rules of fasting. And after they learn that, teach them about the Hajj. And then the Prophet said to him, may Allah protect you from your front. May Allah protect you from your back. May Allah protect you from your right, from your left, and above you and beneath you. And may Allah guard you against the evils of men and jinn. The Prophet had a feeling that he would never see Muadh again. And so that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam hugged him too. And he said, I want you to know, Muadh, that I love you. So the Prophet gave his love to Muadh. Muadh was in his 20s. He was a young man. And he probably looked like this picture, very handsome, and in his 20s. And this is how the men of Medina, this is how the Arabs in Medina dressed in the 6th century. They dress that way today too. So this is probably how he looked when he left for Yemen, because whenever they went on trips, the men would wear their cultural gutra and stuff like this. So he probably looked just like this when the Prophet hugged him and told him, I love you. Okay? Anas ibn Malik tells us that amongst those who compiled the Quran during the time of the Prophet said, learn how to recite the Quran from 4 men, because these 4 people know the Quran and can recite it better than anyone else. Well, guess what, guys? Muadh was one of those men. Also, we have another hadith where Ibn Masud, this is years later after the Prophet had died. Ibn Masud was teaching the Quran to some people. And he said, Muadh is one of the best leaders amongst the original companions. And he's devoutly obedient to Allah. And another companion named Farwa was there. He said, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Ibn Masud said, I will never forget him. During the time of the Prophet, we used to liken him to Abraham, to Prophet Abraham. So he was like Prophet Ibrahim. That's how devout he was to Allah. That's why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him as an ambassador, because he learned the Quran. He knew it better than anybody. He also knew the lawful and the unlawful. And he used to worship Allah. He loved Allah because his mother, Umm Manee, came from the Prophet. Learn, follow him around, learn whatever revelations come to him and implement it. Also, Abu Nuaym tells us, he said Muadh was a leader of the judges and he was a treasure amongst the scholars. He was part of the pledge of Aqaba. He participated in the Battle of Badr and other wars. He was one of the best Ansari youths in terms of forbearance, gentleness, modesty, and he was very, very handsome. This man was so good looking, guys. They say Muadh was one of the most handsome men you'd ever meet. I tell you, sisters, today, those of you who can't accept the qadr of Allah, you sit around crying because you ain't got a husband. Understand, maybe you ain't got a husband in this world because Allah got somebody better waiting for you. I'd give anything to be with a man like this. Look at this man here. Beautiful. I don't know no man on this planet that looked like this. And knowledge of Allah, fear of Allah, love for Allah. Maybe you're single because Muadh is waiting for you. You women need to think about these male companions. These male companions who will outshine any piece of meat on this earth today. If you be patient and accept the qadr of Allah and continue living your life, raising your children like Manee raised hers to believe in Allah, to learn the Quran and put it to use, maybe this will be your reward. Maybe this man, who is one of the most beautiful men ever created, will be your reward. Other people who learned hadith from him is Umar, radiallahu anha. Umar learned from him. Also Abu Qatada. For those of you who don't know who he was, Abdul Rahman ibn Samura. These are all people who narrated hadiths from him. Subhanallah. And not only was he known for his beauty, not only was he known for his good manners, not only was he known as one of the most knowledgeable, but he was humble. Imagine that. Most men today don't have that humbleness. They got all that charisma. They have all that swag, and it goes through their head. They become oppressive to people. It's all about themselves. Well, Muadh was humble because his mother, not only did she teach him good manners, not only did she encourage him to learn from the Prophet and be under him, but she told him, always, my son, always remain humble before Allah. Abu Sufyan tells us that some of his teachers talk about a story in which Umar, radiallahu anha, said, no woman was able to give birth to a man like Muadh. If it had not been because of Muadh, I would have perished. By the way, Muadh was there. He was there when the life of Umar was attempted. It was Muadh who ran and helped and rushed to take Umar out of the way of harm. Okay? Tirmidhi tells us that Anas tells us that the Prophet said the most knowledgeable regarding the lawful and the unlawful in Islam is Muadh. Is Muadh. And I want to tell you women, even Muadh said, a woman does not have to cover her face nor her hands, and she can show whatever makeup and jewelry is on them. That's all. That's what all the companions said, including Muadh. Now, the Prophet Muhammad said nobody knows the lawful and unlawful better than him. Even he said that covering the face and hands is not obligatory upon any woman. And he also said she can show whatever jewelry and makeup she has on her face and hands. Hello. Hands down, I dropped the mic. You brothers and sisters better learn about these companions. Instead of y'all learning about the 4 imams, ain't nothing wrong with that. But instead of y'all reading fatwas off the internet and wanting to know what Imam Shafi said, what Imam this person said, y'all better learn what Muadh said about the lawful and the unlawful, because as the Prophet said, nobody is more knowledgeable of the lawful and unlawful other than him. Also, there's another hadith, whereas the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to show the greatness of Muadh, Muadh will come on the day of judgment and he will be one step ahead of all other people. Why? not just because of his manners, his beauty, and his knowledge, but his devotion to Allah. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam hugged Muadh and kissed him and said, "I love you," he also told the people of Yemen, he said, "I am sending to you the best of my family." And that's Muadh, because the Prophet knew he wouldn't see him anymore. Subhanallah. That's Muadh. That's Muadh. That's Muadh, the son of Manee. So Muadh was blessed by our Prophet and sent to Yemen to spread the dawah. And he never saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam again. He came back to Medina during the caliphate of Abu Bakr, and he died during the caliphate of Abu Bakr when from a plague that had spread in Syria. And by the way, guys, he was only 34 years old. So you can see he didn't live that much longer after coming back from Yemen, because he was sent to Yemen when he was in his 20s. He came back after when Abu Bakr was the caliph, and he died at the age of 34. It was when Muadh died that Umar made the statement, "No woman has ever given birth to a son like Muadh." And that's when Umar thanked Manee. He said, Manee, the mannerisms you've given him, the love for Allah that you instilled in him, the devotion to Allah and the Prophet, and the devotion to seeking the true knowledge. That's when Umar said no other woman was able to do what you've done and has given birth to what you gave birth to. That's what Manee will always be remembered for, the raising of her son, because she was the one, through the mercy and help of Allah, who made Muadh the unique companion, the unique man that he was. Something that you women today need to think about. These women today who want to be like men, you want to go out and get a job and work. You leave your children at home with the internet, with television, with babysitters, when it should be you teaching them the deen. It should be you teaching them manners. It should be you, the woman. It's your job to teach them the deen. Manee died, and none of us know when she died. We don't know if she died during the caliphate of Abu Bakr, after. No one knows, because nothing else is mentioned about her. But even though she died and nobody knows when, her legacy of greatness and faith, her legacy of what true motherhood is, endless. So that's the story of Manee. And that's why I wanted to do her story. Because nowadays, we Muslim women have it twisted. We're so caught up in trying to be like men. We're so caught up in trying to be like the Kafir women. We need to get back to our roots. We need to get back to the roots of Islam and be more like these female companions. Manee was a warrior. Like I tell you, all the female companions were warriors. They had to be, okay? But not only was she a warrior, she was devoted to Allah. And for you sisters who do try to live the Sunnah, because I have a lot of students here who are trying to live the Sunnah, who are trying to emulate the female companions. For example, Sister Fame, Sister Famay, one of my students who grew up here on this website. Oh yeah, she's getting educated, but she doesn't plan on going out into the workforce to be a man. She's trying to get her education in a job where she can work from home. So she can work from home and make money and still homeschool her children and raise her children, because she wants to be like Manee or somebody like Habiba, another one of my students. She moved back home to her Muslim country. Well, it's not a Muslim country, but she moved back home to Kenya so she can protect her children from the fitna of the West. And she too works from home so she can and also cultivate her children. I have another student like Yasmin. Yasmin looking to get a job or a profession where she can spend most of her time at home, so she can put the priority and emphasis on our children. So there are women that are trying to revive the Sunnah. That's what it is, reviving it by putting emphasis on the home. But these women get talked about. They get made fun of. Well, when the people make fun of you, ask them, do they know who Manee was? Because I'm willing to bet you those women that tell you that you're stupid, that you're making a mistake by not going to get a job and going out to become a career woman, tell them, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of Manee? I can guarantee you they never heard of her. Tell them, go learn about Manee. And then tell them to ask themselves, do they really think that you're making a mistake, or are they the ones making the mistake? Remember, guys, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there are three groups of people who will occupy the highest levels of paradise. One group are the martyrs. Another group are those people that took care of the poor and the orphans. And the third group are the parents who were raised up from the supplication and good deeds of their children. See, we don't think about death. We don't think about the afterlife. When you're in that grave, you're going to be wishing that you had spent more time raising your children, because whatever good deeds your children do, you get rewarded for it even after death. Just like me. Every time I sit here and give dawah, every time I teach Islam, whatever rewards Allah is giving me, He's giving to my stepfather. Because my stepfather raised me. My stepfather encouraged me to learn this deen and to become a daya. When my mother dies, the same thing. All my good deeds, rewards, they'll be raised up, because whatever good deeds I do and that my brothers and sisters do, because they're the ones that taught us the manners. They're the ones that instilled that faith into us. Something that you women need to think about today. Those of you who want to be airline stewardess. Those of you who want to travel the world and work for the Red Cross. You better find a husband. You better find a righteous man and produce some righteous children, and then stay at home and educate them. That should be your priority. All right, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments about Manee?
I had a question. I mean, not really a question, a comment. Manee is just like the I forgot the one sister that you did the companions on. I mean, did a story on that dedicated her son to following.
That's Sulaim. Yeah, that's Anis's mother. They were all good friends.
They were all the same.
They were all together the same. They were all together. Nusayba, all of them were friends. They were all together. Yeah, they all did that, because not only did Sulaim donate her son, but also Manee did. She said Muadh too. All of those young boys were donated by, all their mothers were the same. They all did the same thing. It's just that Anas, he was also related to the prophet, because the prophet ended up marrying his aunt. So that's how Anas ended up living with him, because he married, the prophet didn't marry Umm Manee, but Umm Manee dedicated her son too, which was Muadh. And Muadh followed him around, just like Abu Hurairah followed him around. All the kids followed him around. All of these, the young youth were with the prophet, learning from him, because those women had their priorities together, But her son was Muadh. But Muadh surpassed them all in his knowledge and understanding. He was smart. Anas and them too. He was a little older than them. That's how he became the first ambassador. He was older than Anas. Was a little bitty boy, But Muadh was like 18, 19, something like that. So the prophet was able to teach him more, because he was older. He was a teenager.
Yeah, I was basically saying that their two stories is inspiring for a person to do that, because especially right now, at the time that we're living in now, with boys trying to go to gangs and all different type of stuff, it's so important for us to make sure we're teaching them right with the deen. So it was so inspiring.
Exactly. That's why I tell my girls, that's why I was so, because, and Yasmin, because their priority is, I tell them, y'all better be homeschooling them kids. You know what I'm saying? You are raising warriors. They're soaking up all this knowledge of Islam. Look at Fahmy, look at Yasmin. They got all this knowledge of Islam. Don't waste that by ending up joining the workforce, becoming like the Kafir women, and your kids grow up messed up. They end up succumbing to drugs. Stay at home, work from home. Fahmy's looking at billing and coding. That's good money. You can make $75,000 a year in medical billing and coding, and that's an at-home job, working from home. And you can homeschool your kids and raise them. There's a lot of jobs you can do from home. You can do IT from home. My brother Issa is a man. But he works from home, because like he said, he's going to make sure his kids is taken. My brother Issa don't even allow his kids to watch TV. So he's an IT. He works in IT from home. He got his office and does all his work at home, so he can keep an eye on his kids, because it's bad today. So that's why I tip my hijab to those sisters like Fahmy and Yasmin and Habiba. Habiba creates her own clothes and stuff from home, so they can be home with those kids, teaching them this deen. Taking all the knowledge they learn here, sharing it with the kids, homeschool them. You ain't got to go out there and work in the street. Oh, no. Stay home with your kids. Oh, yeah. That's the reward. And I like nursing, too, because it's such a job in demand. And you can set your own hours. They need nurses, and it's going to always be a need. They can set their own hours where they can be at home with their kids. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Sister Shamsa, you're a nurse, and that's good. You can set your schedule where you can work, around your children too. So that's a good field that you're in. Yeah. Like I told you guys, I just gave y'all the hadith. What did the hadith say, Jamila? I just showed y'all the hadith. That hadith is in Bukhari. The prophet said, you're going to a Christian country. You're going to a country where they give gifts. He said, you can accept. What are y'all looking for? The religion is not as hard as y'all make it. The Prophet Muhammad himself accepted gifts. There's nothing in Islam that says we cannot accept people's gifts. We have to stop making this deen hard. You see the hadith.
Was that the sister Layla, the governor of Egypt too, when he had gave the Prophet ﷺ the gifts?
Yeah, that was Maria the Cop. Maria the Cop was a gift. And her sister, remember, he gave her both of them. and other stuff too. He sent them back money and food and gifts and all kind of stuff. Yeah, there's nothing in Islam that says we cannot accept gifts from kafirs. But I'm going to tell you what we do tell you. What we do tell you about that Christmas stuff. Because you don't want your children celebrating Christmas. When it comes to that Christmas and stuff, you tell your family, don't give my children the gifts on Christmas. You have to give it to them on a different day. Because I don't want my children to have no inclination that they're celebrating your holiday. So that's what the scholars come up with. Because you want to protect your children. So with children, things are different. You tell them that if you're going to give my children gifts on your day, then it's got to be a different day, not on the days that you have in your celebration. That's why the scholars say that. They'll say, tell them to give your children their gifts on a different day because it can be confusing for children. And that makes sense. Islam makes sense. It's very intelligent. It makes sense. Yeah. By the way, guys, does everybody understand how I'm going to do this for the new Muslims here? My students know, like I said, the 6 o'clock class, I'm getting ready to put out a video thing too. The 6 o'clock class will turn into, I'm going to put well better on hold until after Ramadan. My 6 o'clock class will be about fasting starting on Friday. Every day at 6, it'll be about fasting during Ramadan. Okay, so that way you can prepare everybody for that. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, I'm going to log out for right now. Inshallah, I'll be here tomorrow for the 6 o'clock class, which is well better. Also, we have the Hadith class tomorrow. And we'll be covering probably the next 3 pages. So we stopped at 124. I want y'all to read 125, 126, and 127 of diluting well better. And I'll try to get these videos out tonight. All right. Okay. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. You saw what? What, Sister Howard? What did you see? Somewhat. What's triaging? Shamsa, what is that? What's a triaging? What's that, y'all? Mina, what's
triage?
Who?
It sounds like she's trying to say triage.
What is
like
that?
The emergency room.
Oh, that's some what she doing some medical stuff? What is it called? What's she doing?
Triage is ER, so I don't know what she's saying.
What you doing, Shamsa? She's a nurse.
Oh, maybe she's saying she's in the triage, like she's there at the emergency.
She said, alhamdulillah, bless me with triaging from home.
Oh.
What is that, Shamsa? Why does y'all ain't on the mic? That's what I'm talking about. She probably even hear us the lag on YouTube. What's triaging? She got me want to know what it is.
Probably working from home.
But doing what? Because my daughter's a nurse too.
She said she praying.
Shamsa, what's triaging from home? What is that? You know, my daughter's a nurse. She'd be at home with them grandsons of mine. She needs to be homeschooling them. What is triaging? Because I'll get on her and tell her, you need to work from home. Put those little boys in Safa, USA, Kareem Abu Zaid school. Let me Google. Is she taking too long? Somebody Google triaging from home.
Hello? It's like you taking like vitals and, you know, information on the patient before they're seen by the doctor. So like your weight, your vitals.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's I mean, nursing has become, it's not just set for just the hospital. They have so many opportunities.
That's why I tell the kids that's a good field. Yeah.
And if you got clinical practice, if you got clinical and IT, man, you could bring
Yeah, she got all that. Shamsa has all that because she used to work in a nursing home. So she has all that. Yeah, like my daughter, they worked and they got all that stuff. That's another good field. I tell the kids here, go to school to be a nurse, you know, because there's so much you can do. You can work from home, schedule your own hours plus work other places. And also, I've always told medical coding and billing for people who got a lot of kids. People like Famay who got and Habiba who got all them babies. I tell them, you know, y'all can do medical coding and billing because that's darn good money and still take care of them babies.
I wish I could find a program.
They got a bunch of them. You Google it. They everywhere because they got a shortage of them. Shamsa says she basically explained procedures such as bone marrow. Oh, that's great. And any procedure that the patient will be having, the cancer patient. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you, Shamsa. MashaAllah, that's my baby. I'm proud of my girl. That's Shamsa. Because Shamsa got those two beautiful girls. She need to be homeschooling them. And yeah, and she's a nurse. I'm telling you, Shamsa. And you do on calls when needed. That's great. I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you, Shamsa. Try to put them girls in Safa, USA. Your babies need to be in Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid school because they're so smart. And that way, yeah, I would really like to see them in Kareem Abu Zaid school. Yeah, exactly. I'm proud of you. That's why those girls are so mannerable, polite, and knowledgeable. I am so proud of you, Shamsa. You and Habiba. You know, her and Habiba are cousins, and they just alike. Habiba works from home too. And I'm proud of it, all y'all. All right, guys, I'm going to close out for right now. Make sure everybody's back here tomorrow. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I am so